Tonight, George Wright, the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Central, resigns from the Jamaica Labour Party. The Office of the Political Ombudsman conducted a review of the September 2020 general election campaign, which was held during a global pandemic.
The participants don't feel that Jamaica is all doom and gloom. They feel that we have done fairly well. We have built on some of the problems and institutions that have come in since the 1980s. We've built and tried to resolve our problems. We have come a long way. However, they feel that we're not where we need to be and that more work needs to be done.
Still tonight, Zoso reinstated on Campbell's Lane in Mount Salem, St. James, in light of the recent rise in shooting incidents there.
I'm extremely concerned that after so much work has been put in to stabilizing Mount Salem under the zones of special operation, that persons who mean no good have taken up back the gun.
And the island registered 88 new COVID-19 cases and 9 additional deaths yesterday, according to the latest statistics from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Good evening. In breaking news tonight, Mr. George Wright, Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Central, has submitted a letter of resignation to JLP General Secretary Dr. Horace Chang, terminating his membership in the Jamaica Labour Party. The Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, has accepted Mr. Wright's resignation and notes his stated intention to address matters in the public domain and his continued belief in the policies and programs of the government and party. In other news tonight, the island registered 88 new COVID-19 cases yesterday and 9 additional deaths, according to the latest statistics from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The new infections are of 48 females and 39 males ranging in age from 1 to 98 years, pushing Jamaica's pandemic total now to 48,821 cases, including 960 deaths. St. Catherine recorded 20 of the cases, followed by Kingston and St. Andrew with 19 cases. St. Anne recorded 16 cases, St. James 10. There were 9 cases in Manchester, 5 cases in St. Elizabeth, 4 in Clarendon, and 2 each in Trelawney and Westmoreland. Hanover, Portland, and St. Thomas recorded no new cases. The deaths are as follows: 2 males aged 71 and 79 from St. James, whose deaths were previously under investigation. 2 females aged 73 and 95 years from St. James, whose deaths were previously under investigation. A 78-year-old male from St. Anne, whose death was previously under investigation. An 84-year-old male from Manchester, an 81-year-old female from St. Elizabeth, a 94-year-old male from Westmoreland, and a 37-year-old female from Portland. Now, the Health and Wellness Ministry also reported 1 coincidental death and 4 deaths under investigation. Meanwhile, the country currently has 21,537 active cases, after 143 additional persons recovered from the virus, pushing the total of recoveries to 25,945. Still making the news tonight, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he welcomes the United States' commitment to donate millions of doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Latin America and the Caribbean. The Joe Biden administration announced yesterday that it will donate an initial allotment of 25 million doses of surplus vaccines overseas through the United Nations-backed COVAX program, which is aimed at getting vaccines to poorer nations. Now, in a fact sheet, the White House said that for these doses, Washington would prioritize countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, South and Southeast Asia, and Africa, as it aims to help stave off fresh surges of infections. Mr. Holness said, quote, We welcome grants, but we also want equitable access. So I want to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the United States for this measure. We are hopeful that Jamaica will get a significant share of the allotment for the region. End quote. The Prime Minister said Jamaica has put aside the fiscal resources to purchase the vaccines that are needed. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, says that the Keys have reopened, but only for beach activities. In a statement yesterday, the agency warned that no parties or entertainment activities should take place on the Keys, and said individuals found engaging in such actions will be prosecuted under the Disaster Risk Management DRM Act 2015. ODPEM stressed that all parties and entertainment events on land or at sea are prohibited under the DRM Act Enforcement Order No. 5 and attract a fine of up to $1 million. Now, ODPEM further encouraged the public to continue to adhere to all the COVID-19 health protocols outlined by the government and to continue to obey all protocols under the disaster risk management enforcement measures, such as wearing a mask in all public spaces, sanitizing and/or washing hands as often as possible, and maintaining a physical distance of at least 6 feet. Still tonight, the Office of the Political Ombudsman conducted a review of the September 2020 general election campaign, which was held during a global pandemic. Now, as the office approaches its 20th anniversary, they consulted with a wide cross-section of stakeholders after the campaign, using a formal review process to gather information and to discuss future approaches. In our exclusive interview yesterday, the political ombudsman, Donna Parchment Brown, and representative of the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, PARI, Mr. David Salmon, discussed the findings, recommendations, and how these findings can help future election campaigns. Mrs. Parchment Brown explained the objective of conducting such a review.
In 2019, we hosted the Commonwealth Secretariat for a series of consultations, and they shared with us that across the Commonwealth, a good practice of campaign reviews was developing. So post-election in a number of countries. We thought that was quite interesting. And then when our elections were called in 2020, we observed a few things which really pushed us to go ahead and do this. First of all, the voter turnout was the lowest ever for a national election. So that was a cause of concern and some discussion all across the country. Secondly, it was conducted in the context of a global pandemic, which we're really feeling here in Jamaica. And thirdly, there was a great use now of social and traditional media as against mass meetings to send the message out to the public. So for these different reasons, we thought it was time to gather people who are interested in democracy, people who may be looking on to talk about what had happened. So we wanted to learn what had worked well, what did not work well, and what might have escalated to create problems. Did the Political Ombudsman's Office operate effectively during the period? And what, if any, changes would people like to see to campaigning in Jamaica? And we found that the selected participants, there were some enthusiastic persons, about 50 in all, and we administered questionnaires, we did poll questions, and we had 3 discussion forums, as well as a number of elite interviews with experts.
The political ombudsman also outlined the groups that have participated in the review.
We had people from academia, civil society, including faith-based groups, PARI, the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, and other youth groups, Jamaica Constabulary Force liaison officers who work with the Office of the Ombudsman, people who were members of organizations who are part of the Election Center, which I co-chair with the Director of Elections, and happily, representatives of the two political parties that contested the election. So it was quite a diverse gathering. So we had a process where people were invited and sent a questionnaire which they were to complete before coming to their different engagements. We broke the people into 3 different groups, mainly. We had the JCF liaison officers in one group, we had the young people, PARI and other young people in another group, and we had the other stakeholders from academia, civil society, and so on in a third group. Then we had about 8 or 10 persons who we did special interviews with. These were persons who had developed a reputation for understanding politics, good governance, and the rule of law, or who were in media and so had a lot of knowledge. And really, I learned a lot from all of the people mentioned.
Mrs. Parchment Brown explained some of the major findings.
So I think the first thing I should say is the participants don't feel that Jamaica is all doom and gloom. They feel that we have done fairly well. We have built on some of the problems and institutions that have come in since the 1980s. We've built and tried to resolve our problems, and we have come a long way. However, they feel that we're not where we need to be and that more work needs to be done. And certainly I was heartened to hear them say more work by the political ombudsman's office to carry forward the gains. So some of the specific findings about the campaign included recognition that we were not using mass meetings, we were more using digital and traditional media. And the result of that was there were less utterances in the public space that may have breached the code of conduct. Although on social media there was a lot of vitriol. We also recognized that the breaches of the Disaster Risk Management Act were plentiful, despite the fact that this was a law brought in for the public safety, that although there were not mass meetings, there were smaller meetings and gatherings where the guidelines and the laws were not being complied with. And it was felt that if the political parties had engaged the marshals that they had promised to help them with their public engagements, that would have been better addressed. Mark you, it was noted that some candidates handed out masks, and spoke about adherence to the rules. Where the code of conduct is concerned, the findings were that there were significant breaches. Some 66% of the participants were aware of breaches having been committed. They were concerned that there was far too much of vote buying and vote selling, and to some extent, in some settings, it had been normalized. They were against it, but they felt that there were many people who thought it was normal now.
For his part, Mr. David Salmon explained the role of PARI in the review process.
PARI stands for the Political Awareness and Respect Initiative, and this is the youth arm of the Office of the Political Ombudsman. The objective of PARI is to increase engagement with young people, with the office, as well as to facilitate the processes of good democracy and good governance. So PARI played a very critical review in the campaign review. So it serves as one of the stakeholder groups that were engaged in the process, and PARI has been involved from the beginning. So several of the recommendations that were noted were actually made by PARI members. So for example, the introduction of a sort of bond that will be used for persons to clean up the political paraphernalia. That is a direct recommendation from PARI. So PARI essentially serves as an avenue where ideas can be developed and formulated that can advance the interest of the Political Ombudsman's office.
He also explained why it is important for young people to be politically aware.
Being politically aware is at the heart of a functioning, thriving democracy, because it is important for young people to be aware in order to keep elected officials accountable. Secondly, it is also important so that young people are familiar with the role and functions of government. So, for example, many young persons would not know that your parish councillor plays a very important role and is really responsible for the maintenance of roads and not necessarily a member of parliament. Additionally, many young persons may not necessarily be aware that each member of parliament is given $20 million for their constituency development fund to serve the interests of constituents. So being aware and knowledgeable about this process is of fundamental importance so that persons can keep their elected officials accountable, as well as look at which stakeholders are responsible for the business of governance and for the well-being of constituents.
Our full interview with the political ombudsman and Mr. David Salmon can be seen immediately after this newscast. Still making Mello TV news, President of the People's National Party, PNP, Mark Golding, renewed calls for members of the PNP to unite during a video released to members of the party last night. He urged members and supporters of the PNP to come together.
Members and supporters of the People's National Party, let us come together, unite, and take on the role that we are destined to play to resume office in Jamaica House and defend the interests and promote the interests of the Jamaican people. We are the party of the Right Excellent Norman Washington Manley, of Michael Joshua Manley, P.J. Patterson, Portia Simpson Miller, Peter Phillips. Let us come together, comrades, all. Let us put this cascas on social media aside. There are a lot of good things going on. We established a unity committee. We issued a communique. All of the officers signed it. They want to see us come together. The signal has been sent to the rest of the party. Please fall in line.
The party's leader said that while the party has faced the understandable challenges which arise after an internal election, he is positive that the PNP is getting ready to reclaim its place as a formidable opposition and Jamaica's next democratically elected government. Mr. Golding pointed out that despite the majority seats held in Parliament by the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, they remain strong and impactful.
In Parliament, we are liquid but with talawa. We are causing the government to run up and down in Parliament, strong in the sectoral debates, strong in the budget debates, strong on legislation. We've established a junior shadow cabinet so our youth can shine and their talent can blossom. And they're already creating a name for themselves by standing up for justice and standing up for human rights. Comrades, we don't need to be our own worst enemies. Put down the cascas, put down the foolishness, throw down your arms and come. As Burning Spear would say, one love.
As we continue with the news tonight, the Narcotics Division has seized over $1.8 billion worth of cocaine and more than $17 million worth of marijuana in operations targeting drug trafficking activities across the island since the start of the year. Head of the Narcotics Division, Superintendent Jervis Moore, declared that, quote, "We will not relent in our efforts to rid the nation of illicit drugs," end quote. The police said more than 100 people, including 6 foreign nationals, have been arrested since 2021 began for involvement in these illicit activities. According to the police's Corporate Communications Unit, CCU, approximately 14,678 kilograms of marijuana with an estimated street value of over $17.6 million and over 248,948 kilograms of cocaine worth over $1.8 billion has been seized. It said in the latest operation on Saturday, May 29 in Robbins Bay, Portland, the Jamaica Defense Forces JDF's Coast Guard seized a 30-foot boat and over 800 pounds of compressed marijuana following an operation at sea. Now the estimated street value of the drug is over $3 million. The CCU said 183 cases have been brought before the court by investigators from the Narcotics Division since the start of the year, 56 of which have so far been disposed of by the courts. Of the 56 cases disposed of, convictions have been secured in 53 cases, the CCU said. They noted that this indicates a 94% conviction rate for the Narcotics Division for 2021 so far. Since the start of COVID-19, the police say there has been an emerging trend with the utilization of courier services to facilitate the movement of drugs in smaller quantities. The Narcotics Division says it has been making a significant impact to rid the country of the trend and has embarked on special initiatives to aggressively target and arrest individuals involved in utilizing the courier services for the purpose of smuggling drugs. The division said 62 people have been arrested for offenses related to trafficking drugs via courier services so far. The police also noted that the Narcotics Division has also seized 6 firearms, 402 rounds of ammunition, 10 motor vehicles, and 5 boats in drug-related operations. Meanwhile, the police are reminding the public that although the 2015 amendment to the Dangerous Drugs Act makes provisions for the smoking and use of marijuana for religious purposes, it is still an offense to have more than 2 ounces of marijuana in your possession. It added that offenders can be arrested, charged, tried in court, and if found guilty, sentenced to a fine or to imprisonment, or both. In other news tonight, a zone of special operations has been reinstated on Campbell's Lane in Mount Salem, St. James, in light of a recent rise in shootings there. Marlene Mello Fort, Member of Parliament for the St. James West Central constituency, which includes the Mount Salem community, appealed to residents to be a part of the solution of crime fighting.
I mean, we all know that the guns are wreaking havoc on the society. I'm extremely concerned that after so much work has been put in to stabilizing Mount Salem under the zones of special operation, that persons who mean no good have taken up back the gun, and we're hearing so many reports of shooting. The Zozo was not intended to be a permanent feature. A lot of work has been done. Many of you would recall when it was coming, how persons were politicizing it and decrying it. And now that it has been here and they have seen the benefits and we're getting to the stage where we should be wrapping up, then things are flaring up again. Let me just say to those persons who are operating on the wrong side of the law and are killing each other, whatever your dispute is, it's not worth it. The arm of the law is long and you will be brought to justice. I know many people think they can do their wrongs and get away with them, and many have done their wrongs and get away with them. And I'm appealing to citizens. I think people know who these persons are. Don't wait until it falls in your home. Right, sitting in my office, no, if she hasn't left, is a mother who witnessed her son being shot 17 times up in Tower Hill. Right? So the government will do what is required to bring the crime under control.
Mrs. Mello Fort, who is also the country's Attorney General, has also asked those who are involved in the flaring up of violence in the community to stop.
I'm not going to sit back as Member of Parliament and allow people to be slaughtered left, right and center with a gun. So here's my appeal. Those of you, you know who you are. I beg you to stop it. Let it not be said afterwards when the state must act to protect innocent lives and to bring order and peace and calm to an area, and to Mount Salem in particular, that others are crying out. I beg you to put it down. We have achieved a lot in the Zozo. You have seen the difference. No, it's not the time.
The Attorney General also pointed out that while the government is working on improving the investigative side of law enforcement, persons need to do their part in curtailing crime and violence.
Every time there is a flare-up in crime and violence, and gun crime in particular, the ask is about the law. Remember, it doesn't matter how heavy a penalty is. If you can catch the criminals and convict them and the sentence hand down, it really doesn't matter what you have. So what the government has been doing is to focus on improving the investigative side of law enforcement, and you would have already seen how fast the police are turning over. But the Zones of Special Operations law is currently being reviewed in the Joint Select Committee of Parliament. Part of the review we are considering dealing with the security side of the zone separately from the community development side of the zone. And the proposal so far is to insert the enhanced security measures on the security side. But no aspect of law can be looked at in isolation. You know, a lot of people, real change doesn't come overnight. But you know what is going to stem the crime problem? Is families taking responsibility for their family members. It's about the values that we embrace as a society, which say that you don't kill a man because you're in dispute with him. You don't resort to violence because you disagree on a matter. And those changes don't come overnight. So I'm also appealing to the media to highlight issues. Strong nations require strong families. Strong communities require strong families. And if we don't have people who are holding our communities together, we're going to have the fragmentation and the problems that we have. So the answer is yes, and more is required. And the government can do so much, but the people have to do their part.
Meanwhile, the West Central MP also provided 18 communities with assistance today, valued at just under $2 million, to help needy residents in her constituency prepare for the hurricane season. This, Mrs. Mello Ford says, will help residents fortify their homes and minimize loss from any effects resulting from the hurricane season.
Special housing assistance is being provided to needy constituents whose homes have been visited, state of disrepair assessed, and the assistance is essentially to help them, particularly as we're going into the hurricane season, to minimize any loss and to just help them fortify their homes. We have grantees from all communities: Catherine Hall, Ramble Hill, New Ramble, Kingate, more rural side of the constituency, all areas of Granville, Retirement, Tucker, so across Crawford Street, Clark Street, Peddlers Lane, Primrose Lane, we have beneficiaries from all three divisions and about 18 communities, and it's just under $2 million of assistance.
The West Central St. James MP also toured sections of the Wilshire community with the councillor for that area and the superintendent of road and works to assess damage resulting from a recent flood that occurred in the area, along with care packages issued to residents in that community. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with other stories as the Rotary Club of Negril and the Chamber of Commerce in the parish, along with other stakeholders, joined forces to play their part in continuing the National Tree Planting Initiative. And the National Works Agency, NWA, says the parochial road, which runs off the Bamboo to Worthy Park Main Road in Watermount, St. Catherine, has been closed to facilitate a major drainage project in the community. But first, we'll go to a break, and then it's over to Christopher Scott with the very latest in sports.